By the end of this video, you'll understand why some families are pulling ahead and other families are struggling to make ends meet, and what you can do right now today to put your family on a better path. Have you noticed that it doesn't matter how hard you work, it just seems like you can't get ahead? I'm Matthew from Little G Farms, and today we're going to talk about the only way you can fix this. And not only that, but also how to build a solid future for your family and your community. Groceries cost more, housing costs more, tools cost more, insurance costs more, land costs more, and even when your income goes up, it doesn't keep up with the rising prices. Everybody feels it. The economy shows it. People don't have extra money to spend. There is a reason why everybody feels squeezed right now. The economy is splitting into two groups: people that have productive assets and people that depend almost entirely on wages. Here is the letter K. One line goes up. These are the people that have assets, land, businesses, rental property, stocks, equipment, systems, and networks. And one line goes down. This line is made up of people that depend almost entirely on wages. They work, get paid, spend the money, borrow, and then they have to work again. What's happening is the middle path here is disappearing. This used to be people that had a job, had a 401k, maybe had a pension from their company, they bought stocks and bonds, they worked and got wages, but they also bought assets with those wages. And now everyone in this middle class is being forced into one of these two other lines. This area is disappearing. And this is what I want people to really understand. The danger is not just being poor. The danger is being completely dependent. Dependent on one job, dependent on one paycheck, dependent on one grocery store, dependent on cheap fuel, dependent on debt, dependent on systems you don't control. That's where a lot of families are right now. And the scary thing is, many of them do not realize how fragile that position really is. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to move from the bottom leg to the top leg. Where's the K-shaped economy taking us? I lived in Asia for about 7 years, and I saw what an economy looks like without a middle class. Most people work multiple jobs 6 or 7 days a week, and they hardly ever get any time off. In the place where we lived at, most people only got off 1 week per year. They worked for, They worked for 358 days to have 7 days off. Extended families lived in very, very small apartments or houses. And at the same time, people lived in luxury apartments on the other end of town. And what they paid for rent in 1 month was what most people made in a year. The gap between rich and poor was huge. Once they got on the path of working poor, it was very, very difficult for anybody to move off of that. That's not where I want to be, and that's not where I want you to be either. So how do we make the desired outcome happen? I did it once before, and now we're doing it again. But this time we're doing it entirely different. We're doing it by what I would call modern homesteading. When we first started homesteading, we just thought of it as a way to get better food for our family and to have a little insurance against the supply chain disruptions and the things in the economy. But over the last 10 years, the idea of homesteading has taken on a whole entirely new mindset for us and our family. We now view homesteading more like economic defense than a hobby. Homesteading is how an ordinary family starts to convert from consumption to production. I'm talking about a home and a system whose sole purpose is to give you freedom from the world, but not a system that turns us into subsistence farmers or wilderness recluses, although the second one does sound kind of nice to me. A more modern version of freedom. Freedom that's achieved by skills, assets, and community, and with the end goal in mind of getting your assets to produce income for you. A garden is production. A wood stove is energy production. A freezer full of meat is food security. A workshop is income potential. A skill is an asset that can't be inflated away. A business is economic production. Rentals are economic production. There are a lot of assets that can be economic production. A community of capable people is a safety net. So when I say get moving towards your homestead as quickly as possible, I don't mean everybody has to go out and buy 40 acres tomorrow. That's not realistic for everyone. What I mean is this: stop drifting, stop waiting for perfect conditions, stop assuming the system that's squeezing you is going to save you. Start moving toward a life where your family is less dependent, more capable, and more productive. For some of you, it might mean buying land. For some of you, it might mean selling your house and getting one further out. For some of you, it might mean paying off debt so you can qualify for a loan for land later. For some of you, it might mean starting a backyard garden, food storage, a side business, or learning basic skills right where you're at. Not everyone has to make the same move today, but the point is everyone needs to start moving, because the longer you wait, the wider the gap becomes. And the wider the gap becomes, the more difficult and expensive it is to cross it. On the consumer side, we work, we spend, we borrow, and then we repeat that process over and over again. We depend on employers, we depend on stores, we depend on debt, we depend on systems we don't control. And on the ownership side, we have land, skills, tools, food production, debt reduction, community, income, and resilience. Probably going to spell that wrong. Resilience. This is why I think homesteading is so important. So how do we get across the gap from here over to here? There's 3 steps that get us across the gap. Reduce dependence. You do that by cutting unnecessary expenses. You pay down your debt. You stop lifestyle inflation, you learn to live on less, reduce reliance on convenience. The next step is build skills. Gardening, food preservation, animal care, cooking from scratch, carpentry, fencing, and I'm not talking about the fancy kind, small engine repair, hunting, butchery, sewing, budgeting. One of the most important skills to have is selling. If you want to start a homestead business or a home-based business, you need to learn how to sell. This is one that people can start with absolutely no capital, and you can actually get paid to learn how to do this. It's also important to learn the skill of building relationships. The third step is acquiring assets. And I want to be clear what I mean about assets. I don't just mean stocks or paper assets, although those aren't bad. I mean anything that helps your family produce value, reduce dependency, and become more resilient. Land, tools, a greenhouse, livestock, fruit trees, a workshop, stored food, a water system, a solar system, a home-based business, a local reputation, a strong community, and yes, a productive homestead can absolutely be an asset. The goal is to slowly turn your time, money, and energy into things that keep producing for your family long after the money is spent and the labor has been done. This is a completely different way of thinking. Reduce dependence, build skills, and acquire assets. All of this might sound really hard or even impossible, but I'm living proof that it absolutely can be done. When we moved back to the United States after living abroad, we had no house, no job, and very, very little money. We started off with a van and almost nothing else. I'm not telling you it's easy, but what I'm telling you is it absolutely can be done. You may need to drive an older vehicle. You may need to stop eating out. You may need to sell things. That's a double win because it also generates income when you sell off your possessions and you spend less time taking care of them. You may need to buy an imperfect property. Definitely what we did. You may need to live smaller for a while. You may need to give up convenience. All of us need to spend less time being entertained and more time building skills. I spend too much time on my phone. Increasing your skills can mean a huge increase in income. I just saw on Indeed One of the cities close to us is hiring plumbers. Starting wage for a licensed plumber with no experience at all is $100,000 a year. And if you have a year's experience, you start off at $130,000. If you have more than 3 years experience, they said just call them to talk to them because your wages are going to be higher. And you think about that. If you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, just below the median income for the US, if you boost your income by $50,000 over the next 30 years, that's $1.5 million from learning a new skill. That's huge. That's what increasing your skill set can do. Making the sacrifices is not losing. It's trading temporary comfort for permanent capability. This is how we win. At some point, we need to stop asking, why is this happening? And we need to ask, what kind of household am I building in response to this? That's the question. What kind of household are you building? A fragile one? A capable one? A dependent one? A productive one? A consumer household? A resilient household? Because this isn't just about you or me. This is about us and our families. This is about our children. This is about people who one day might depend on you. This is about whether your house is a place where money disappears or one where value is created. That's what modern homesteading means to me. It doesn't mean you produce everything yourself. It doesn't mean you disappear from society. It means you build a life that's harder to shake. A life with more skills, with more assets, more food security, more practical knowledge, more local relationships, more ownership, more knowledge, more responsibility, and less dependence on systems you can't control. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I want that, but I don't know where to start, then start small. Start where you are. Don't wait for the perfect property. Don't wait till you have all the tools. Don't wait till you understand everything. Don't wait till you feel ready. Start becoming ready. Plant something. Cook from scratch this week, learn one preservation skill, pay off some debt, sell one thing that's keeping you tied down, research land in areas you can actually afford, learn one practical skill with your hands, build one relationship with someone local, start putting food back, start tracking your expenses, start developing a skill that increases your income, start moving your family one step closer to the life you want. Because movement matters, momentum matters. Because the people who move right now are going to be in a lot better position than the people who wait to do this when everyone's trying to do it. This is also why we're building our Skool community. We're building a community for people who are serious about moving in the other direction. Homesteading alone is hard. People need encouragement, accountability, examples. They need people who understand the goal. They need a place where they can ask questions, share wins, avoid mistakes, and stay focused. Sacrifice seems strange to most people, and most people won't get it. But you and I don't want to go where most people are going. We want to go on a different path. That is why community matters. You and I need people that are walking the same road. People who can share what they're learning. People who can help you avoid mistakes. People who can encourage you when the process feels slow. People who remind you you're not crazy for wanting a more grounded and resilient life. So if that's the direction you're moving, we want to invite you to join us inside our Skool community. Just scan the QR code on the screen. Come be part of a group that are not just passively watching the divide grow, but are actively taking steps to cross it. The economy is splitting. The middle is getting squeezed. The people that have productive assets are in a lot different place than the people that depend on wages for their income. The longer you wait, the harder it will become to move from dependence to ownership. Homesteading is not just about land, chicken, and gardens. It's about turning your home into a place of production instead of consumption. The way across the gap is simple, but not easy. Reduce dependence, build skills, acquire assets, and do it with a community. So before you click off this video, write down these 3 things. 1 dependency you need to reduce, 1 skill you need to learn, 1 asset you need to build. That's your starting point. Don't wait until everything feels perfect. It never will. Don't wait until the gap is too wide to cross. Start now, start small, start right where you are, but start moving, because your family and my family's future depends on the actions we're willing to take right now. Do not wait until the gap is too wide to cross.